Well, welcome back to McCarthy Performance. Okay, this is a hydraulic controlled pump on this machine that moves the ram, and you always got to make sure that you've got enough stroke to push the bar ahead, because if you don't want to stop in the middle of a housing bore. You always want to make sure that these aren't too close to the caps. You don't want any kind of bind when you clamp these on the machine. It's got a track here that's a V-groove, and you don't want these to be binding. So far it's looking pretty good. Everything's cleaning up like it should. You always want to make sure that these aren't too close to the caps. You don't want any kind of bind when you clamp these on the machine. It's got a track here that's a V-groove, and you don't want these to be binding. So far it's looking pretty good. Everything's cleaning up like it should. Okay, we're basically going into the houses and just kind of scratching them. I probably am going to, the next cut I'll take a little bit more heavy of a cut. I just kind of want to check to make sure that the alignment on the bar is as good as it can be to the block. So far the first, The middle three aren't just starting to pick up a little bit on the fourth one. Number one, we cut a little bit on. Number two, we didn't cut much on. Number three, we scratched it. And this one, it sounds like we're going to take a little bit more off. So I think the bar is pretty much center. I don't like moving the center line of the crankshaft too much unless we have to. This one, because it was media blasted or shot blasted, the housings are pretty aggressive, and it's an old block and they're rusty, so who knows what condition it was in after they blasted it. I don't really know. The only thing I can do is put a bore gauge through it and check it from there. We've got about 10 thousandths off the cap, so there should be enough to clean everything up, hopefully. Okay, so we've bored the number 5 cap. It's showing pickup marks on that to the full limit on what this mic reads, because I don't trust this mic and I never have. I verify everything with my dial indicator, so I have a special gauge that I made up that's much more accurate than this, but this is to get it close. And what I do is I put marker on this, and when you can see that little line there, that's what I'm going by as to know how much feel, because this is kind of hard to judge. You got to press it up against the bar, and then you got to slowly rotate this in to check the size. But usually if you set the size that you want and you let gravity work for you and just move it slowly across the cutter and then lightly tighten it up, that works. And then what I do is I'll mark it, and then I'll back it off, and then I'll slowly work my way up to it and keep looking at the mic until it makes a little more. So like I said, the original mic for this machine never read intense, and I like to get everything as close as I can, and with that you would maybe could get as close. I think I've got about 0.5 thousandths with that mic, and this eliminates the feel and the guesswork. So I always rough in with the original mic, and then I set up with this. We've got to move it about 6 thousandths. So whatever the value of this is going to be half of that. So I've got it set up, and I've got some little tension knobs on here that draws it into the saddle on here. I'll rotate it to make sure it's at the highest value, and it is right there. So we're going to call that 0. And then I use this. This is spot faced, so it sits right in there. We're going to move it 3 thousandths. This one, I might have to get my other pusher out. I've got 2 of these, depending on how much stroke is left in it. Let's see here. Yeah, we're going to have to use the other one. Hang on and I'll get it. Okay, I made this, and that straddles the boring bar, and the cutter rides on this. I've spot faced my cutters, so I can use one of these pushers, and they used to use these on the old Tobin rod machines. I don't think they ever used them on the line bores, but this is what I do. I would like it a little closer, but basically I got to push it out 3 thousandths of an inch. That's going to give me 6 thousandths, and that's where I need to be, and that'll be the last cut on this. So we're going to check everything again, make sure everything's right, and then we're going to set it, and then I'll show you how I set it. Okay, I've got my other, I call this a pusher, I don't know what they called it. So There's 1.5. There's 2, 2.5. Right there's 3. Make sure this is tight. We're going to back it off and see how far it moves. It didn't move at all. 1, 2, 3. So that should be done. That should be it. Now we're going to run through the lock, and I'm going to start with the first cap and work my way back. It doesn't really matter, but seeing how I'm all the way to the end here, that's how I'm going to do it. Well, there she is. She's pretty much done. I'm going to deburr it a little bit because these are razor sharp on the edges. Usually I run just a brush through there. I know some guys say, oh, you shouldn't do that. That's a hack. But that's what I do. And you can see that the finish that I achieve is, well, if I have to say so myself, pretty damn good. Okay, we're pretty much finished with the 283 line boring it. And it didn't turn out too bad. This one's a little bit bigger than I'd like it to be, but it's still within spec. These are all on the small end of the spec, varying 0.2 to 1/10. Here's the back one. So the back one's like maybe is 0. One-tenth. You know, 2/10. So that's kind of the way it is. They're all within a couple tenths of each other, which is a lot closer than GM. No, I did not put an oil pump on here to simulate the torque and distortion of the cap. 6 1/2 does another. Some guys use deck plates for torque plates for honing, and some guys don't. I do. I just don't feel that's really that important on pretty much a stock engine. Everything cleaned up pretty good. Of course, you know, with the parting lines, sometimes you get a dead area right there. And there's not much you can do about that. You're putting a circle inside of a circle, and depending on how big they bored that the first time, these usually when you move everything down, this ends up being the dead area. This ends up being wider, and the bigger that they made this from the factory, the more problem you'll have trying to clean that up. It's a non-issue area here, and that little bit isn't nothing to be even remotely concerned about. But take the dial bore gauge out. I don't really want to try to operate this with one hand, but let's see if we can get another one here. So it's 2/10 under spec on the small side of the spec. And this one's a little bit 2/10. Yeah, 2/10. And this one's a tenth bigger, 2/10 bigger, a tenth bigger. So I bought these cutters from these people here, and these happen to work pretty good. A cheap alternative to their cutters, which are tin coated. I haven't found much difference between them. Well, that's about it. Thank you for watching.